元気分けてくれ。よし、できたぞ。はめはめ。やったぞ。
見てください。父さん。
Know your place, worm. Prepare yourself. Damn Saiyan.
I would say that Jump Force was the game that I was most excited to play in 2019, and the reason was because I am a huge fan of anime. I'm a huge fan of the shows that are represented in Jump Force, the antagonist, the protagonist. Obviously, I love Dragon Ball, but I love Naruto, Yu Yu Hakusho. I love My Hero Academia. From what I've seen, I enjoy One Piece. And I was a huge fan of J Star Victory Versus. And this game was basically the preliminary to Jump Force with worse gameplay. The gameplay for that game was definitely not as fun, but its more cartoonish look made it feel more faithful to the anime adaptations, and this one took a completely different step. It went more into realism, which is something we haven't seen in anime in a very long time, and I think it pulled it off really well with the character models for the most part, but they are limited, and you see their limitations in the story mode. So I'm going to get into the good of the game, and then I'm going to just tear it apart, because this game is not worth $60. And if you are one of those who has not picked up Jump Force yet and was waiting for a really late review, like a month after the game came out, well, you're in luck because you're watching my video, but I'm telling you right now, it's not worth $60. And when you add all the DLC that's being planned, I mean, it gets close to $100. This game's just not worth that. There is a lot of story, or a lot of hours into the story, that you can pump your time into. And I'll be honest and say that I don't have that time. I got basically halfway through the story because I've seen some YouTube videos that have the entire story, and I can kind of pinpoint where I'm at in the story. And I'm about halfway through the game, and maybe at some point in the future I'll actually make a video talking about my experience with the story, but I actually had to go to Wikipedia and figure out what happens at the end, because I honestly don't want to spend any more time on this story. This is not like when I didn't want to finish the story for Dragon Ball FighterZ, which I ended up doing about a year later, which the same thing could happen with Jump Force. But with Dragon Ball FighterZ, I'm such a huge Dragon Ball fan, and I wanted to see the story of my bae Majin 21 fully completed, so I was willing to delve that time in there and crank out as many hours as it needed for me to go through all those repetitive battles. And that's really the difference with this, is that you have a game mode that is just for story, and you can kind of just focus on that. The Jump Force story mode is a little bit different. It makes you run around the hub world, and sometimes it doesn't even tell you what to do. You just kind of have to figure out, okay, so the main dude right here, the director, he's not giving me any quests, so I have to run around the entire hub world trying to find different Jump Force characters to interact with so they can give me quests, and then eventually I can get the quest back from the missions table, and then I will be able to get another mission quest from the director that's more integrated with the story mode. It's a lot of running around in a hub world that isn't built for it. And I know I said I would go with the good first and then the bad. But surprise, bitches, I'm doing a complete 180. I'm gonna go into the negative first because that is what my heart is telling me to do, and give you guys a negative because that way at the end I can give you the positive, which is probably something that you guys have heard from other YouTubers and reviewers of this game. So the hub world is not designed to be running around in it trying to talk to different characters. It's not. And mainly the reason for this is because the motion blur in this game is completely ridiculous. I mean, there are stills online where modders on the computer version of this have actually edited out the motion blur and it looks so much better. But when you're a console pleb, you have no access to mods, so you're stuck with what you're stuck with. There's just too much of it and you're running around far too much and it gets old very quickly. This is the reason why if you try to Google or search the end gameplay or even the story being explained by YouTubers, it's hard to find anything on this game that's not on Wikipedia because no one seems to have the patience to go through the story mode. But I've already been spoiled just by making this video. I looked on Wikipedia what happened in the story. So, spoiler alert for anyone who doesn't want to know what happens at the end of Jump Force. The director is the bad guy. Dun dun dun. I know, you didn't see that coming. I saw that coming a mile away. As soon as we started the game, just the way this guy looked, I knew there was something off about him. And it's not just because everyone looks like they're creepy plastic dolls. He just had this thing about him where he was basically doing the exact same thing that he was blaming the bad guys doing, collecting the Umbrus cubes, which have varying powers. They can make you into a shonen character, but at the same time they control characters from shonen. They're very confusing, but he's basically the bad guy and he controls the two other bad guys that Akira Toriyama created. I don't remember their names because I don't care. But yeah, he betrays them at some point and then continues on with his master evil plan. And at the end, you fight him and then you win. But that doesn't put the world back together. And so you become the director of Jump Force. And that's basically the way they're lampooning into another game. Which, if they are, they need to fix the story mode of this game because it's just terrible. The cutscenes are awful. The dialogue is awful. And the few animated cutscenes that there are, similar to the very first one, which is by far the best cutscene in the game, where Frieza is destroying the entire city and you accidentally get shot by Frieza, which again is the best part of the game, and it's at the beginning of the game. The game has some cutscenes in it that are sprinkled throughout, very short cutscenes, but here's the problem, and I don't know if it's just my Xbox, but once it gets to those cutscenes, it like dips in FPS, or if I'm playing online, there's just a lot of lag in the game, whether you're playing online or you're facing off against the characters during missions or the story. It just doesn't seem to get any better as you keep going. And I've already touched on the fact that there's so many glitches in the game and so many lazy animations that it makes the game and the story mode extremely laughable. So without having a story mode, all you're really left with is the multiplayer, and the multiplayer is fun, and it's fun to create your own character. I think that's one of the more fun aspects of the game, but the problem is that if you complete the story, you get access to all these different costumes and abilities as opposed to when you begin the story. So you have to play the story mode to make the best character or the best looking character or get certain things that you want for your character, which kind of sucks because you're stuck playing a story mode you don't want to actually enjoy a feature that's really good in Jump Force. I definitely think that the customization is a highlight, and the gameplay is a lot of fun. The gameplay plays like Naruto Ninja Storm. If you haven't played the Naruto Ninja Storm series, I don't know what you've been doing with your life. Unless you're not a Naruto fan, then I can understand. But if you even like Naruto a little bit, play Ninja Storm. I grew up with that shit, and Ninja Storm 4 is by far one of my favorite games of all time. It's so much fun, and this game plays very similar to that, except there are some broken moves, abilities, combos that aren't in Naruto Ninja Storm because they have more of a strategic sense about that. This game is more arcadey, and I can dig that. So I'm glad that we finally got some gameplay that's very similar to Naruto Ninja Storm, because I am not a big fan of side-scroller, and I really didn't like Xenoverse 2's take on combat. And speaking of Xenoverse 2, when it comes to Dragon Ball games, once you start playing with Dragon Ball characters in Jump Force, for me anyway, it felt like you were just playing Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3. That's kind of how the system felt. It felt like you're floating around. Besides being able to fly, that's basically what it felt like to me, and I really did appreciate that. Like I said, the gameplay is a lot of fun up until recently. I guess the game has always been so arcadey, and the fans have taken advantage of that, because now you can have certain builds with certain tags that just mount so much damage that you can barely do anything. Basically, the game, if you're a high tier player, is all about broken builds, as opposed to, say, fighters where anybody really has a shot as long as you know how to fight. This game is not like that. I swear to God, the characters that I see the most are Zoro, Goku Assist, and Killua. Maybe Ichigo in there. Like, these characters, especially Killua, are extremely broken, and when you put their broken abilities onto character customization, you have broken builds, which really sucks the life out of multiplayer for me. I'm not really into that. Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 had a lot of that when you were playing it online against friends. There were a lot of broken builds, and this is just the same thing. Like, it's completely different than Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is a game that is basically built on skill, which I can appreciate. Honestly, Jump Force made me appreciate that game even more, because that game doesn't have broken abilities, broken builds, at least not as far as I've seen it. I can jump in there, and as long as I can hold my own a little bit and know which moves to do, then I can at least administer some damage. I'm pretty decent at Jump Force. I actually was pretty good when it first started, but now after taking like a 2-week hiatus, and everybody has and knows what abilities are the best with other characters and stuff, it's like those builds are the only thing I see. So it's not like you're really just fighting or able to fight with any character that you want. You gotta pick specific characters for specific jobs. And for me personally, that really kills the fun of the gameplay aspect of it, at least playing online. I can play against a computer all day long, but what this game really needs is a rematch mode, because that way you can face off against fighters that have beaten you, or you've gotten really close to beating them, and you can kind of learn from them a little bit better instead of jumping into somebody else completely different. I'm not exactly sure why they didn't add rematch to this, but it just seems so, I don't know, lazy. And then I don't know why games don't do single modes anymore. Like, why can't you choose one character and face off with just them? Put them to the test. Why do you have to keep using all these assist characters and throwing them into the mix? Like, I hate assists. I hated them in Ninja Storm. I hated them in every other game that's had them that doesn't have the option of just doing a single combat, because a lot of these issues would be fixed with single combat. I mean, it just sucks when you're like trying to face off against this character and you're doing very good, you're blocking very good, you're striking very well, and then out of nowhere you get a Kamehameha up your ass because Goku dropped right behind you. Like, it's just annoying, and I don't know, I don't like it. I guess it's just not my cup of tea. Overall, guys, this game has a lot of promise when it comes to being a mold for the second one, because I know there's going to be a second one. The second one needs a better story, more care taken into the animations of the story, and just making it as cinematic as that intro was for the first game. We need a rematch button. We need to have single combat, more characters, definitely. I mean, right now we're going to be paying for more characters, and I really want to play Seto Kaiba. Kid Buu comes out, All Might, Bakugo. Like, I'm gonna be spending some money on these characters because there's nowhere else that you're gonna get an experience like this at all, and that's what Jump Force has going for it. There's nowhere else you're gonna get all these anime characters, especially duelists, into one arena and face off against your friends, and you should be able to do that in a better way. Honestly, the story that they should have gone with Jump Force, with this Jump Force and the next one, and just all three of them, should have been a tournament arc. I mean, tournament arcs are just the bread and butter of shonen anime, and you have a game where you have all these different characters colliding and you don't think of making it into a tournament. A tournament would have worked so much better. These characters being pulled from their shonen timelines to be put in a tournament, have the director be the one that pulled them there, and maybe the bad guys, make them a team or something like that. They pulled them all there, and whoever wins gets to make a wish on the Dragon Balls, because obviously that's like the best thing in any of these universes. Boom, there you go. You have an excellent story. It would be so much fun to see, and it would be really easy to animate because you only have that one setting to do it in. I don't need all these different settings. I really don't. Give me an arena, give me Thor Ragnarok, and I'll be fine. So do I regret spending 60 bucks on this game? No, because I played it a lot. And I've gotten my money's worth with what I played it, and I've gotten that feel of having this sort of super crossover event fulfilled. Should you spend this money on this game? No, not unless you really want to play a huge anime crossover game. At that point, you're spending $60 just on the multiplayer alone, as long as you can figure out the builds thing. Like, again, the builds thing is not what I like, but some of you guys might be really good at it. That's all I got for you guys from Jump Force. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought of the game. What do you think the game did good? And what do you think the game did bad? And what can Jump Force 2 do better? This is going to be Blackscape signing off. Take care, guys.